Hello everyone, welcome on in. It's Betting Weekly WTA. It's me, your host Nigel Seeley, joining me with our senior WTA handicapper. It is Rory Jiwani, looking ahead to another busy week on the WTA Tour as the season comes to an end. Good afternoon to you, Rory. How are you?
Hello, Nige. You're not sounding the best, mate. Gotta say.
Mate, I've had a terrible bug. I was supposed to be in Finland to watch the England v Finland match, and I've been awfully ill since Friday, and I'm just not feeling at my best. But couldn't go because I was too sick to travel, and I got a very disappointed young lad and very disappointed father as well. But anyway, we soldier on. I'm not saying I'm chatting to you though. It's all right. Things ain't that bad.
Yeah,
it's all right. Could be a lot worse.
Was it Jordan Pickford's performance in goal that sent you over the edge?
Oh, Jesus. That was depressing. I must admit, that was depressing, but it's more to do
England-Greece, for those who don't know. But
it was one of the worst performances I've ever seen from an England side. Well, it probably is the worst performance I've ever seen from an England side, but absolutely diabolical. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better today, but unfortunately I won't be there cheering them on. Last week we had a tennis tournament. Sabalenka rolled back, another win this year. Close. Is she now the number one in the world? Has she ever taken the Swiatek? She must
Not
be very close.
yet.
Very
Pretty
close to doing so. Yeah. Pretty impressive though, wasn't she?
She was. I mean, she started slowly. She looked a bit shaky early on. Didn't look at her best against Katerina Siniakova. I think it was 6-4, 6-4 in the end. And then she dropped the first set against Yulia Putintseva. 6-1, and you thought, hello, here comes an upset, but she came roaring back, won the third 6-love. And then yesterday against Coco Gauff, that was a fantastic match. Absolutely brilliant match. Gauff won the first set 6-1. She was incredibly impressive. And then the double faults kicked in the second. She served 9 double faults in the second set. She served 9 in the third. She was actually quite competitive despite that, but Sabalenka was up and playing really well. They played some great tennis in the second and third sets, and Sabalenka came through. And then today, she was taken to 3 by Zheng, which was a bit of a surprise because obviously they met before in the Australian Open final, and Sabalenka won comfortably. And I was expecting more of the same today, but Zheng came back really well in the second set. Sabalenka just had enough in the third, went into an early lead in the third, and wasn't for catching. So great performance for Sabalenka. I think that's her 5th title of the year. That's her 3rd consecutive win in Wuhan. She clearly likes the place and leaves her in great shape. And as you say, she's closing in on Swiatek for the number 1 ranking.
I'm just looking at it now. Swiatek's got 9,785 points. Sabalenka 9,716. They're almost 4,000 points clear of Gauff in 3rd place. I mean, you sort of bear that in mind. Gauff's 4,000 points clear of people ranked inside the top 50. That's how dominant those two are at the moment on the women's game, Iga Swiatek and Sabalenka. Looking at the scheduling now, I mean, we haven't got much tennis left. There's only a month left of the season. I can't see many more times that Swiatek and Sabalenka are going to be out until the Tour Championship, really. I don't know what their schedule's going to be like, but it's going to be quite interesting to see if they participate before the end of year finals in Saudi this year. Obviously, big money.
Absolutely. And that's going to be very interesting in itself because Riyadh, which some of you may know, is at altitude. It's almost as high as Madrid. It's 600 metres above sea level. Be interested to see what the surface is, but that altitude is going to be an advantage for the bigger servers. So it could be right up Sabalenka's street. I mean, last year they were in Cancun, really slow hard courts. Swiatek dominated. She beat Pegula, was it 6-1, 6-love in the final. But these courts could be a bit more to Sabalenka's liking. And as you say, big money up for grabs. And the way Gauff's playing as well. I mean, I wasn't impressed with her last week until the final when she played superbly against Mukova. This week she's been a bit up and down. But when her serve's working, when she's not serving double faults, she's looking really good. And obviously, she split up with her coach, Brad Gilbert, recently. She's got a new guy in there sort of leading the coaching team. And things look to be going well apart from that serve. And yesterday, some of the second serves, it was like a golfer with the yips. They were just flying nowhere near the court. I mean, it was incredible to see. But when her serve's working, she looks really good.
All that to come here on Betting Weekly Studios. It's all about this week, and there are 2 tournaments this week. There is a 250 in Osaka in Japan. We're staying over in the Far East, and there is a 500 in Ningbo. But unfortunately, the one in Ningbo in China, we haven't got any prices as of yet because there is doubts over about the number 2 seed Zheng, who may not participate in the tournament. And unfortunately, Bet Rivers at the time of recording this haven't got any odds on to win the tournament. Rory will give his thoughts on the outright market, go through the draw, go through the bracket, go through the conditions. So when Bet Rivers do put the prices up on the app or the website, you'll be able to have a look at where you want to place your bets. But it will be on later on today, I suppose. But obviously with the time differences here, we unfortunately can't cover that one. But Rory might put something on the social media page if I beg him nicely enough to do so over the next week. Let's start with the tournament in Osaka in Japan. It's the only one we can talk about. It is a 250 event here. If we're looking at the previous winners here, Rory, it's not really some of the biggest names. Ashley Kruger won it in 2023 when it returned from the 2019 where Hibino won it, Diaz won it. There's not really many big names who've won this tournament. There's nothing really looking at the previous winners that give us any sort of identity of where you think the former winner, this year's winner, will go. What's the court speed like before we look at the bracket and look at the latest odds with Bet Rivers?
Yeah, it should be fairly quick. It was last year. And just to note, so you mentioned last year Aisling Kruger won it. She beat Lin Zhu in the final. The 2019 tournament was held in Hiroshima, so that's not really a guide. We've just got last year to go on. But it did play quick. Service hold percentage of 68.7, which is definitely a fast side of medium. Conditions-wise, weather-wise, high temperatures, high 20s Celsius, so low to mid 80s Fahrenheit. Wednesday could be a washout. The weekend doesn't look great either, but doesn't look as bad. Ningbo looks really bad actually during the week, but Osaka doesn't look as bad. They should be able to get quite a lot of play in the next couple of days. But yeah, the quicker conditions should play a part, should make our mind up who to pick, but it's a pretty weak tournament.
Yeah, it is a very weak tournament. You look at the bracket, you can tell you that. None of the players have a bye. They've all got to play for the rights to 32 women event. The number 1 seed is Magdalena Frech, which shows you how bad the tournament is. She's obviously in the top half of the group of the bracket, and she'll play Elisabetta Cocciaretta in the quarterfinals if it goes to seedings. Elise Mertens is the number 3 seed. She will run into I can never pronounce this girl's name. Avanesyan. Is that right? Avanesian. Okay, Avanesian. She will run into Mertens, and that completes the top half of the draw. In the bottom half of the draw, it's Samova and Buskova and Diane Parry, and it was Leila Fernandez, but unfortunately the former US Open champion had to pull out the tournament, and her place has gone to Volanets. So it is not the best of draws at all. And I suppose if you're looking for value, there's got to be some value opposing these seeds. We saw a 250, 2 or 3 weeks ago, when not one of the not one of the seeded players got to the quarterfinals. So it does look that kind of event, doesn't it? It's the end of year. It looks like anybody can win this one.
It does. It does look open. It really does. Big blow for Fernandez. Grand Slam runner-up, and goes well in fast conditions. So actually, she was a player I was looking at for the tournament, but and she has come into a bit of form. She gave someone a scare this week. It's one of the big names. I think it was Zheng. She took the first set against Zheng and then lost, fell apart a bit. But she's not there, as you say. Katie Volanets is there instead. They've just rejigged the draw. Yeah, looking at it, it's difficult to see too many players in great form. The one who is in form is the top seed, Magdalena Frech. She won in Guadalajara in not slow conditions. They were kind of medium pace. But she was she is one of the few players you could look at and say she's playing well. I mean, she beat Emma Navarro in Wuhan, and then she defeated, I think it was Beatrice Haddad-Maia. So, she's a player who's going well. And to me, that counts for a lot. As you say, it's the end of the season. Some of these players are just trying to get some wins at the end of the season, finish on a high note. You mentioned the seeds. One interesting wild card is Bianca Andreescu, who's in the bottom half of the draw, although she hasn't played since the US Open. and she's got a reasonably tricky opener against Greet Minen of Belgium, who can serve quite well on her day, and you'd think in these quicker conditions could be a bit of a handful. But, looking at the draw, I mean, going through the seeds, Cocciaretto's interesting. She can go well this time of year. She hasn't been in great form. And in that top quarter, you got Freck, Cocciaretto. Sophia Kenin's in there. She's very, very up and down these days. And McCartney Kessler's there as well, the shock winner of Cleveland. In Q2, Mertens and Avanesian are the seed. And I do like the look of Avanesian. I think she's been playing quite well. She gave Marta Kostyuk a real scare in Wuhan. But she's got Kruger, the reigning champion, first up. And that won't be easy. Kruger's a tall player, big server. And you can see kind of why she won this tournament last year. It was playing quick. Her serve really counted for a lot. She's a very up and down player as well. And that's the thing with these 250s. You mentioned that tournament when none of the seeds reached the quarterfinals. A lot of these players are very, very up and down.
If you just look at the betting, let's have a look at some betting. Some interesting matchups in round one. Head across to the Bet Rivers website to see the first round matchups. And the order of play actually starts at 6 p.m. tonight, Eastern time. So it's actually this evening some of the action starts. So it might not be on I think it's 6 o'clock tonight. The action starts on the head to the Bet Rivers website. So take a look at that. The first match, Magdalena Freck is up against Osorio, and it's she's the number one seed, but she's not the favourite. It's Kudermetova who's the favourite at plus 650. She's been given a bit of a helping hand because her original first round opponent was Volanets, who's now moved into that number 2 seed position. So she had a little bit of a helping hand there. She's plus 650. Mertens is 750. Freck, the number 1 seed, 9. Andreescu is 10. Buskova is 12. Kruger, defending champion, 12. Clara Towson, someone I always quite like in these tournaments, she's 14. Volanets is now 16. She's into that number 2 seed. Avanesian is 18. Cocciaretto 20. Kenin 20. Kessler 22. Manero 25. Erika Andreeva had a good week last week. She's 28-1. Harriet Dart 28-1. And Gret Menin, who's opened up she's got a tough first round match, isn't she? She's up against one of the seeds. I think you mentioned it a minute ago. She's up against Andreescu, so she has a tough match as well. She's also 28-1. On those odds, I thought Andreeva had a good week last week, and I thought that looks a decent price. She's up against Diane Parry in the opening round, which is obviously a player that is seeded, but it's anyone's tournament. I'd rather look down the bottom of the list than rather the top of the list.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with the favourites. I mean, Kudermetova did show signs of returning to her best last week. She looked quite good, but then she went out very tamely to Beatrice Haddad-Maia. I don't know. It's just... And I suppose one thing that does help her is she's likely to beat Marie Bauskova in round 2. She beat Bauskova in Wuhan. It's a very interesting tournament. It's a very, very open tournament. It's so tough. Such a tough one. I mean, the bottom is just wide open. I mean, Kudermetova's in there, as you say, Volanets. Towson's in there. Towson's shown a bit of form. She went to the Challenger in Hong Kong last week, and she reached the final there, losing to Ajla Tomljanovic. She'd been pretty dreadful form before that. To be honest, the bottom, I think I'm just gonna avoid the bottom half because you've got something. I mean, Tomova's in there. She's a player who I don't think will be suited by the conditions. I think it's just going to be too quick for her. Bauskova and Kudermetova, I think, so they're likely to meet in round 2. I suspect the winner of that match will make it through to the final, but then you do have dangers like Towson, like Andreescu if she's fit. So I'm looking at the top half. I'm preferring the top half. I think it's just a bit easier to work out. Freck does have Camilla Osorio first up, who's always tricky. The thing about Freck is, she's not a power hitter particularly. She's good at extending rallies. She will hit the odd winner. But her best performances this year, and she is in good form. She won in Guadalajara, her first tour victory. That was in conditions probably a little slower than this, but they're on the faster side when it comes to hard courts. Osorio's never easy, but Freck, she does serve well as well, and that should help her here. And I think after that, it's not too difficult. I mean, probably McCartney-Kessler in round 2. She won Cleveland, which was playing slow. Then it's Cocciaretto or Kenin, most likely. So Kenin's very up and down these days. Cocciaretto hasn't been in great form, but you'd fancy Freck at the moment to win that. And then you're looking at probably Mertens, Avanesian or Kruger. Mertens is a bit up and down. Obviously, I backed her for Monastir to win her 3rd consecutive Monastir tournament, and she didn't get it done. But I don't see anyone there, especially the form that Freck's in. I don't see anyone there to trouble her. So I'm pretty happy with Freck, and I think $9 is fair enough. But it should be my only pick from this. The bottom half just looks a minefield.
Yeah, it does look very, very tough. And I would say this is a time of year to be really, really careful with your stake size, because obviously a lot of question marks about fitness, motivation, especially in a tournament like this where everybody's really had a long year. You saw the players getting angry, especially on the men's event last week, with the line judges and the umpires and stuff like that, and you just feel that everyone's want to get their feet up and have
had enough.
Rest up. Yeah, had enough. I think it's got to be very, very careful, especially in a tournament like this at 252. It looks very, very trappy, but the number 1 seed Magdalena Freck is Rory's bet to win this at $9 with Bet Rivers. Head across to the app, head across to the website, and you'll get the full list of prices on there. And remember, 6 p.m. Eastern time tonight, the markets will come down. So you haven't got long to get the bets on. The action does play a little bit later on because of the time difference here. There is a tournament in Ningbo, and it's a good tournament. Unfortunately, we haven't got any odds at the moment of recording because of the uncertainty about the participation of the number 2 seed Zheng. If you're looking at this, though, there's a lot of motivation for these players, because there are 5 players. I think there's 4 players or 5 players who've almost certainly qualified for the Tour End Championship, and then you've got a load of them underneath that who are trying to get in, and they're all pretty much in action here this week. So there's a lot of players here who've got some incentive to do well, to either put their place into the Tour Championships or force their way into the reckoning. So it is a good tournament here. I'll just give you the draw. Jasmine Paolini is the number 1 seed. She has looked tired. She has looked, not at the levels that we saw when she makes the final of the French Open, the final of Wimbledon as well. She's the number 1 seed. She should be scheduled to play Paola Badosa, who's in great form at the moment, up to 15 in the world rankings. So he needs to have a couple of good wins or a couple of good tournaments, and she could force her way into the WTA finals. Navarro is the number 3 seed. She'll play Haddad Maia. Kazatkina, number 5 seed. She'll play Krejcikova, who was very disappointed last week. Kalinskaya will play Zheng. But also in that bottom half of the draw, you have Karolina Mukova, who is in some great form, and she should be playing Zheng if Zheng participates, which is a big question mark as well. There's Potapova, there's Mira Andreeva. There is a lot of good players. Schneider with Badosa could be a final. It's a first round match. Katie Bolter is here as well. So this is the best tournament of the 2, bar none, and you'll have to wait until a little bit later on before the odds go up. It was played once before last year, and it was won by Ons Jabeur, who isn't in action this week. She's still out off the tour at the moment. Hopefully she will come back. That kind of player when the tour returns in January. Rory, it's very hard to see this because we've got no odds, but 4 players, the top 4 seeds have buys through to the last 16. Paolini, Navarro, Krejcikova and Zheng, if Zheng plays. But with so many question marks, and where do we start really with this one?
I guess we start by looking at the conditions. As you say, just one tournament we can look at last year, and Ons Jabeur won it, as you say, and she beat Diana Schneider in last year's final. We mentioned Schneider playing Paola Badosa first up. And Nadia Podoroska reached the semis, which, she's a clay court specialist, and it did play slow. Service hold was 62.7%, so it played pretty slow. So this is not going to be one for the big hitters, you wouldn't have thought. Paolini, I've got a little question mark over her participation as well, because she's had a long year, and I think she's 99% certain of a place in the WTA finals. she is I think she's 4 after this week. I think the sort of up-to-date ones, if you take into consideration this week, she's 4. And I think, so Swiatek, Sabalenka, Goff, Paolini, Rybakina in 5th and Pegula in 6th, I think are pretty much safe. And then Zheng's up to 7th. She looks reasonably safe. And then you got Emma Navarro in 8th. She's probably not. And Navarro's not in great form at the moment. She lost to Magdalena Freck in her first match in Wuhan. Since reaching the US Open semi-final, she's been in dismal form. I think she fell at the first in Beijing, and then she played a challenger in Hong Kong. I mentioned the challenger in Hong Kong. She won a couple of matches there, but then got beaten, in a pretty substandard field. So it was a challenger after all. So she's a player definitely to oppose this week. Weather-wise, I did mention it earlier. Wednesday and Friday look really bad. So you could get a few delays as well. And the temperatures are fluctuating between, mid-80s Fahrenheit down to mid-70s, then up again. So it's a bit all over the shop as far as weather's concerned. And, as we've just had 2 1,000 tournaments. Most of the big names are missing, So we've got no Sabalenka or Swiatek, obviously, having split with her coach. Pegula's not there, despite an early exit this week. Rybakina's still out. As you say, Paolini's the top seed. That top half, the top quarter, Badosa up against Deanna Schneider looks a cracking first-round match. As you say, could be a final. You'd expect in these slower conditions, Badosa's pretty versatile, and Schneider is as well. Schneider has shown signs last couple of weeks that maybe she's sort of tailing off at the end of the year. So Badosa might be the one from the top quarter. Second quarter, opposing Navarro. Beatrice Haddad-Meyer there. Disappointing defeat to Freck as well. Magda Linette and Yulia Putintseva are the unseeded dangers in Q2. Putintseva, of course, took a set off Sabalenka. Q3, Krejcikova and Daria Kasatkina are the seeds. Mira Andreeva's in there, as is Ekaterina Alexandrova, who was played quite well in Wuhan, but these conditions will be too slow for her. And then in Q4, it's Qinwen Zheng and Alan Kalinskaya if Zheng plays, and then Mukova's in there. And obviously, we haven't seen the odds. I'd expect Mukova to be favourite for this tournament, even though she's not seeded. Perhaps with Badosa second in the betting. But yeah, it's obviously without odds, we can't really make a judgment on this. I think Mukova, I'd be interested to see Mukova's price. I think she'll be favourite. If she's not too short,
well, it depends with Zheng, doesn't it, really? I mean, if Zheng doesn't...
It's a big thing.
If Zheng doesn't play, then Mukova will be favourite. But if Zheng plays, it'll be Mukova and Zheng in round number 2. Which would make a huge difference to the outright bet. So it's really, really uncertain. I do think that you've sort of come up with some kind of logic there in terms of the race, because I haven't looked at it in complete detail like you have here. I have it here they really are only playing for one spot, really, I would guess. And that's Navarro's just hanging on to it. So that gives absolutely huge amount of incentive to Haddad-Meyer here. And in the slow conditions, in dreary weather, I think she's got a good chance here of doing well and closing that gap on Navarro, who would be a fade for me. So I think that's important. Motivation is everything, and just it's impossible for us to say what we are going to bet without seeing a list of odds in front of us. It's just very, very hard to do. So my only advice you do is to make sure you head across to the BetWithers website throughout the day today. Certainly we'll be there later on this evening, but at this moment in time when we're recording, we're also recording with Sean as well. We only have the one set of prices because of the uncertainty on the field and the participants and their big name players that we just can't really take the risk and having any odds without knowing who's going to play. So unfortunately, that's where we are. We're at the Osaka tournament in Japan, and we've got one bet for us this week, and that is, Rory?
That is Magdalena Freck, 1 point each way at $9.
Yeah, and if you follow Rory's bets so far throughout the year, you're slightly behind, -2 units, 0.81. On the game bet match, we're -7 units. But on the football, early start of the season in the Premier League and across in Europe, the guys have been on fire. 6.91 units up on the Premier League and 10.41 on extra time across Europe. And the guys will be back this week on Thursday, looking ahead to all the football returning from the international break. There's also Betting Weekly live every day, Monday to Friday, 4 o'clock Eastern time. You'll be at 11 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock UK. You'll be able to find out all the best bets from the guys. The handicapper, one of the handicappers will be on there. And also we get all the latest big moves and monies coming into the Bet Rivers trading office. Rory, thank you very much for your time. Enjoyed it as always. Sorry I don't feel so great.
You've soldiered on, mate. You've played a blinder.
You can download the podcast, Betting Weekly WTA, on your preferred podcast provider. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Betting Weekly Studios, and follow us on our socials at Because We Win on Twitter and Instagram. Hopefully, Rory, when the draw comes out, you'll do us a little piece for us on the socials on Twitter so that everyone know what your pick will be over in China at the Ningbo Open, because it is the best tournament of the week, unfortunately. That's it for today. We'll be back next week. Take care, and we'll speak to you soon.